The Physics Center has endured and been so robust, well, primarily because of the quality of the people and that come here and the physics that comes out. But it's also these more subjective qualities of the life in general in Aspen are associated with the Physics Center. And I mean, certainly the way physics is done here has changed quite a bit over the years. And in the beginning, it was very few, well, occasional talk during the week, but no organized workshops. And everybody knew everybody else and more or less knew what they were working on. But of course, there was very few people. To now, where I'm sorry to say, there are probably 80%, if not more, of the participants that I don't know. I mean, that's partly because I haven't made big enough effort, but it's just a different generation or two, maybe.
It's not so simple to wind up talking to the younger guys, because I think they figure out, here are the old fuddy-duddies, what do they know? And so it's actually not so simple. And I try to make an effort to, because I'm a gregarious guy anyhow, so I like to talk to people. And the main way you do it at the beginning is you share an office with somebody. When I first came here, this year, I shared an office with two young astros, and that was great. They were telling me things that they were doing, and I learned to talk to them. The other day, actually now I'm sharing an office with Vernon Barger from Wisconsin, and we were discussing the same subject, how many people do you know? And we took the list, the housing list, and went down, and I figured I knew about half of them. And it's not so simple, because I think, as I said, I think the younger guy's a little more leery of interacting with you than you as an older guy are with the younger ones. As Dick mentioned it, things have changed here in the sense that many people used to come for a big chunk of the summer. They came with families and kids, and the kids formed friendships which last to this day. My son now lives in Glenwood Springs. He's 41 years old, and some of his best buddies are people whom he grew up with here in the summertime. Eric Berry and Tim Duran. These people chose to come back and live in this nice area. Well, the point is that now, with the way the Physics Center is structured, a lot of people come only for 3 weeks. And that's a little hard to see how you're going to build the same degree of deep interaction with a place when you only come there for 3 weeks. I don't quite know how that's actually going to evolve, because you need a set of people to run the place who really care. And this older crew, not counting Steve, he's a mere child in this compared to Dick and me and Randy, and I don't know how it's going to evolve, but it's clearly going to be different. It's going to be different.
It seems to me that the thing that makes the Physics Center so strong are the people that are committed to it, and are willing to work for it and find it to be a part of their life. And when I think about why it is and how that's developed, it seems to me that there's a self-selected group of people who come here to Aspen because there's a certain combination of things that draw them here. First of all, there's the physics. They love physics. They love interacting with people. They love the way physics is done here in a very interactive mode. They're also the kind of people that love the outdoors, that love to hike, that love to fish, ski, and these kind of people. And when you come here, you find this group of people that have the same interests that you have, the same desires, the same things that excite them. And being here and being in this environment and being involved in these things just naturally leads the relationships to become something at a different level than your normal relationships. My best friends are my friends from Aspen. And, and it's not an accident. They came here because they were drawn here because they're like me, and I find my compadres here. And so I think that's sort of the unique part of Aspen. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that say, well, my best friends in physics are here, the ones I've made in Aspen. And I think we all feel the same way, and at least that's my sort of analysis of how it's happened. And this is really the strength of the Physics Center. This is where you feel you belong. This is why you're willing to work for it, to make it happen. Yeah, the Physics Center will change. Maybe it didn't have workshops in the past, and it will have workshops. Maybe family situations will make it difficult for people to stay as long as we did when we were young. But I think this fundamental dynamics will draw the same groups together. Maybe they'll all be young and they won't talk to me, but the cohesion between them will exist in the same way it did between Syd and I and Dick and Mike and all of my buddies from my generation. And I think that'll help perpetuate the Physics Center. And 40 years from now, there'll be the same group of guys that'll be sitting here, complaining about why the younger generation isn't doing things exactly the way we did it when we were young, but they will have continued to move the Physics Center ahead in some way, and it'll still be a really great institution.
When I started to work on LIGO, I got the Physics Center to agree to have a winter conference on gravitational wave detection. And it played a super important role in the development of I'll call it the gravitational wave community, because people came from all over different. The field was kind of fractured with different feuds and so on, and different views. And this was a unifying place, and a lot of the present organizational structure in that community started right here in this room and then in Flu. I mean, I get continual requests from people say, "Oh no, don't abandon going to Aspen. We love it," and they come from all over the world. So, and I think it's not just in that community. I think it's in other communities that Aspen has formed a unifying base, and people can come together. They're not sitting in some home institution. This is neutral turf, just politically. For me personally, coming to the mountains, I learned to be much more independent and learned that I could take care of myself in the mountains in the winter, in the summer, and then later in the winter. And so it was important to me in that sense of developing a sense of independence. And on the other hand, you also learn that nature is here, and you accommodate to nature, and nature does not accommodate to you. So if you slip on a rock and you clunk your elbow, well, you learn to be careful and not slip on a rock and clunk your elbow the next time.
Yeah, I've always been impressed by the social structure and the way the friends and the different things that we did here that we never did at home. I mean, I have friends back home in Columbus, Ohio, where I live. I've lived there a long time, but there was never going to Maurice's for dinner, to cooking school. I mean, that was such a part of a unique part of Aspen when we come together, and we'd go to cooking school at Maurice's, and we'd all sit around in Maurice's kitchen till late into the night, watching him cook, and all these different things, and taking notes and exchanging notes on that. And it was, and you know, it was important to this entire group that came together here. And it was that same group when the Winners Conferences started. We all showed up for the Winter Conferences. Why was it that this whole group happened to come out and ski? You know, everybody doesn't ski. In fact, most of my friends back home never skied and would never think of skiing. But then people like Syd, who were part of this group, when it was time to have winter conferences and skis, Syd was, what, 55 years old?
56 years old.
And I remember, you know, with Mike on one side and me on the other side on the bunny hill, guiding Syd down the hill, Syd saying that he was going to learn to ski and get up to the top of that mountain. And he did, you know, and that was the, you know, and it wasn't so many years later than Syd skied his first black slope. But this is the characteristic of the people who came here, and this is what's really impressed me about this group of people. And I think this sort of, you know, in a sense, I think it carried over into the originality and the creativity of the physics they did, and there was just a unique exchange. One of the most memorable times I remember was in the mid '80s. During that period, I was a big tennis player, and I used to play tennis all the time with John Schwartz. And so at that time, early '80s, John owned a Gant, and I didn't own one. He had great tennis courts. And so I would come over around 8 o'clock, and we'd meet, and I'd come to his condo, and he'd give me a glass of orange juice, and then we'd go out to the tennis courts and beat up each other for a couple of hours playing tennis. And John was a very good tennis player, and I never beat him. Somehow he still continued to play with me. And I remember, I think it was '84, and Mike Green was staying with him, and I came over, and you know, and I'd get the glass of juice, and I started to get this thing about 496 generators, and you know, SO32 and all that. And I said, John, you're just trying to confuse me, trying to get my attention off the game, afraid that I'm going to beat you. And you know, that was the first summer I ever beat John at tennis, and I should have known that something was really distracting him. And it wasn't more than a month later than I learned something indeed was distracting him. And of course, this was the big revolution in string theory, and that he was making at that very time. And it certainly helped his career, but it didn't help his tennis game. So that was one of my memorable stories from Aspen.